In 1995, Louis Farrakhan was the most polarizing man in Black America. And despite being a powerful and gifted orator, Louis Farrakhan was just not about talk. He was about organizing. Even though he had a small religious denomination called the Nation of Islam, he was able to do something that most have never been able to accomplish: the Million Man March. On October 16, 1995, 1 million Black Americans showed up to Washington, D.C., and it put some concern in many government officials. But they were not the only ones who were concerned. The Jewish community was concerned too. You see, Louis Farrakhan had a history of making quote-unquote anti-Semitic statements. And in January 17, 1996, he would go on a world friendship tour to some suspicious places, according to Jews and Americans. Out of the 7 countries that he would visit 4 that stuck out as red flags: Iran, Iraq, Libya, and Sudan. Now, all of these are Muslim nations. All 4 of these at this time were under hostile sanctions, and they were considered U.S. adversaries. And as we know, all of these were enemies of Israel. So how is it that Louis Farrakhan, who makes anti-Semitic statements, visiting these countries that are also anti-Semitic? On April 4th, 1996, Louis Farrakhan would appear on 60 Minutes with the legendary Mike Wallace in one of the greatest explosive episodes ever seen on television. And he was asked about his stance toward the Jews.
My Jewish friends will say, Wallace, come on, we've heard all this before. He's not to be trusted. You know that.
Well, that's on both sides.
I know it.
That's on both sides. I could say, well, we've heard that before too, of reconciliation. Look at the Indians, look at all the treaties that were signed, and look at where they are. So let's not talk about trust, because I really don't think that you've earned trust.
In the 90s, being anti-Semitic meant it came with a large price. But Louis Farrakhan was able to overcome that simply because of his ties to the Black community. Many people didn't care that Louis Farrakhan was AKA anti-Semitic, so he was still able to flourish, despite being threatened and having other issues going on with the United States government. But fast forward, the year is 2018. We're now in the social media age, and the game is different now. It's not like it was in the 90s. And Louis Farrakhan is being criticized on national TV by a young lady.
And what we're seeing take place on the left is that a form of extremism is starting to take place. You can't even get me started on Al Sharpton. I mean, as a Black American, I fundamentally take great issue with a lot of the things that he's done here. We're talking about a man that has frauded the Black community over the last 40 years, now taking a platform and telling us that we should be aligning ourselves with Louis Farrakhan, who is a known anti-Semite. And this is the same platform on the left that they tell us that we should be worried about Trump because he's racist, because he's sexist, because he's literally Hitler, their favorite thing to say. And yet they align themselves with somebody who is a known anti-Semite. Just consider that for a second.
This young lady is Candace Owens, who will become a burgeoning star in the conservative right. At this particular point, she's associated with Charlie Kirk and Turning Point USA, who at that time was funded by the Jews. But if Louis Farrakhan is an anti-Semite, what proof do we have of this? In this sermon called "Who Are the Real Children of Israel?", Louis Farrakhan would start this off with an explosive introduction.
The architecture of white supremacy has never been brought to the table to be discussed. The architecture of white supremacy will have to be exposed so the tree of white supremacy can die and the tree of humanity can live. Who are the draftsmen and the architects of such an idea that has dominated our planet for the last 4,000 years?
He would then go to follow it up with this.
Our historical research department has studied from the scholarship of Jewish historians, scholars, and rabbis. And we have published volume number 2 of The Secret Relationship Between Blacks and Jews.
This book will become one of the most controversial writings in Black American history. The first volume in 1991 blamed Jewish merchants and financiers for playing a dominant role in the Atlantic slave trade. In volume 2, the book would blame Jews for gaining control of the Black American economy. They would claim that after emancipation, Jewish business owners, landlords, and financiers exploited newly free Black Americans economically. And volume 3 would go over the Leo Frank case. I'll let you guys figure that out. And of course, this book has been largely criticized for being anti-Semitic in writing, but that's not all.
Look at what these people control. At every door that leads to power, they have a sentinel on watch. Somebody has to take on the Synagogue of Satan, and here we are.
Louis Farrakhan uses strong language to refer to the Jews. And you've heard this saying because in the Bible, but he uses the term synagogues of Satan. In actuality, saying that the people that are doing some of these evil works who claim to be Jewish are not actually Jews themselves, but these people are of the devil. And these are some of the things, obviously, that's written in the Bible about the early attacks of early Christians. So this is his stance. And before anybody took this stance publicly, before Candace Owens took it and Nick Fuentes took it, Louis Farrakhan was the first person to take it. But then eventually Candace Owens herself would shift her position from supporting Turning Point USA or even Ben Shapiro at the Daily Wire, and she would also quote unquote wake up to see what Israel, in her opinion, was doing in Palestine. And then she would come out and make extreme cases like this.
I just hope everybody recognizes that, like, when it all comes down, they'll kill you too. Like, I just want to, like, it's just, when you get to the point where you have to, like, start saying that it's, like, cool for, like, innocent babies and children to die, and you're like, well, I'm in the crowd that's saying it, so my innocent children and babies won't die. No, that's not really how it works. When you get to the level of I will kill a child and lie about it, you're at the level where I'll kill anybody and lie about it. Like, there's a bigger thing happening here. So don't think you're, like, marked safe by being a sellout and pretending like you don't think that, you know, babies dying is wrong. Just want to let you know, you die too. Maybe they kill you last, but you're dying too. Okay, just putting that out there.
Damn.
And then, flat out, she was asked one day on the stream.
Eddie writes, can you please interview Farrakhan? He's in his 90s. I actually don't know anything about Louis Farrakhan because when I got into politics, I was always told you can never speak about or know anything about Louis Farrakhan because he's a raging anti-Semite. And I believed that. I'm going to be honest, I totally believed that because why would people say that if it wasn't true? And these were people very much on the right. And yeah, I'm just going to go ahead and be honest about that. That was what I was told.
Candace Owens is asked flat out to interview Louis Farrakhan. And that specifically, she was told that Louis Farrakhan should be avoided because he was anti-Semite. But now we see that Candace Owens is agreeing with Louis Farrakhan on many things, especially when it comes to the Jews. But wait, fast forward. In Candace Owens' career, she has been used to come after Black America to build her audience. But now, as time has gone on, she's now identifying and agreeing with at least some of the things that Louis Farrakhan is saying. She's never coming out and says, you know what, he's right. But she did criticize him early on, and now she's agreeing with his talking points, without actually apologizing for what she's done. And I want to give a big shout out to where I actually got this video idea from, and it was from The Real Dana. Candace Owens admits she was wrong about Louis Farrakhan. Give her a round of applause for this great video. But there's something else I want to talk about. What if she's wrong about something else?
Woo!
The one thing about getting older is that you figure out that your positions are wrong about many things. You start to see the world for what it really is and not what you thought it was to be. Just as Candace Owens was told to stay away from Louis Farrakhan because he was an anti-Semite, many of us in the Black American community were told that we needed to get away from our own group because our group was toxic. There's the same thing that my mom told me. Is the same thing that you need to get away from Black people and move to middle America and, you know, work for a good corporation and just retire. That's what we've also been taught. But what I've seen from other groups that come into America, Hispanics, Indians, is that they appreciate their people and work with their people and they value their people. And so when they're able to do that, they're able to scale and they're able to grow. And Candace Owens most likely has been told the same thing about Blacks. The more she's going down this rabbit hole, the more she's getting away from how she started. And so I wonder, is she ever gonna admit that white racism against Blacks is actually real? Is she ever gonna admit that her position on Black people is wrong? Is she gonna ever admit that Farrakhan is also right on race relations? Because if he's also right about the quote unquote Jew situation, what else is he right about? He has to be right also about white supremacy, doesn't he? By default, if you agree with Louis Farrakhan, when it comes to the Jews, as you would say, then there is no way that you could disagree with him about other points of white supremacy or supremacy in America towards Blacks. You can't disagree with that. To accept one and not accept the other is complete insanity. So if Candace Owens would accept or at least agree in point that Louis Farrakhan was right all along about a certain particular group, then she must also believe that his wisdom and knowledge must also indicate that he is right about other things. And then that would break Candace Owens' arguments about IQ with Black America, Black American violence, all of these other things. She would have to reconsider her position. But doing so would lose her position with her current audience. And so what she will do now is she will most likely agree with Louis Farrakhan with that, and the other things that she also will find out, she would ignore it. Because to understand that truth means losing your entire audience. And this is why, for me, I didn't think that it was cool to, you know, become like a real big time Black conservative Republican audience or go down that route, or me myself getting funded by Turning Point USA, because I already knew where it would end up, and it would end up in a very disingenuous position. Don't get me wrong, I am more right-leaning in my political views, and that's just how I am and always are gonna be like that. But I'm not so much more right-leaning that I'm more white-leaning. Woo! I may vote for the right, but I work for the Black. If you come onto the landscape talking about Black America and the Black community as you were in 2018 against Louis Farrakhan and Al Sharpton, and now you're not talking about that at all, then something must be interesting about that needs to be discovered. So guys, what do you think? It's your boy O'Shea Duke Jackson back at it again with another episode of The Celebrity Junk. Appreciate you for all that you do. Subscribe with the bell. We're out.